Good morning, everybody. It's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. Welcome to this week's Nature Q&A. I'm going to see if I can get myself set up on the phone, so hold on for a moment. And hopefully we'll get our technology working okay. If you're out there and you can see me or hear me, don't hesitate to let me know. Hey, I think I got me. All right, great. Technology is working. This is a great thing. And it's a beautiful day, and there's lots of fun things to talk about. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a comment. My technology is working, so I can see them. And you can always post a message to Facebook, and you can email us at birds.etc@nhaudubon.org. But I'm here now, happy to answer any questions about birds or other wildlife or natural history topics. So send me any comments you've got. And Linda, thanks for letting me know you're there. And welcome. Thanks for joining. And hopefully you can see and hear me okay. So one of the things I wanted to start out with was our migration update as what's happening now with birds, because it's still fall migration and there's still lots going on. And it's songbirds that are still moving through. Most of our warblers have moved through. We have yellow-rumped warblers that are still around in pretty good numbers, and palm warblers that are still around. And then we've got sparrows, and it is sparrow time right now for migration. And this morning I was out at the community gardens in Concord, and I had loads and loads of song sparrows. So their numbers have gone up. There's still a lot of white-throated sparrows around too. Now the sparrows are difficult to identify, but the white-throated sparrows have a bright little white throat right here, usually a yellow tick right by the eye. But they're around in pretty good numbers. And then this past week has been a great week for white-crowned sparrows. Now, white-crowned sparrows breed farther north in northern Canada, and we only see them in migration. And usually we see a few. You might have 3 or 4 that you see. But this past week, there have been great numbers of them. And I had, just a couple of different flocks of 14 or 15 white-crowned sparrows all together. At one place where I was birding, I had more than 30. That's a huge number. Now, white-crowned sparrows are a little bit, they're one of the bigger sparrows, and they've got a plain light gray breast, brown back, like brown like most of the sparrows have. But the males have bright black and white stripes on the top of their head. Now, that can be confused with the white-throated sparrows because the white-throats also can have black and white stripes on the head. But the white crowns do not have that white throat here. And then the immature white crowns, they don't have black and white, they have kind of brown and tan stripes. And again, there's a white-throated sparrow that has brown and tan stripes on the head, but it doesn't have that whitish throat. So you can keep your eyes out for them and watch. If you're feeding birds, you may have them coming into your feeders, although sparrows tend to like to feed on the ground. So I scatter seed, mixed seed on the ground for my sparrows. Hi, Norma, and hi, Marie. Thanks for joining. Again, it's Becky Suomala with New Hampshire Audubon. Happy to answer any questions. Don't hesitate to put a comment there. I'm happy to talk about anything that you're seeing or answer any questions. Also in migration, we have a little tiny bird coming through. It's very small. It's called a ruby-crowned kinglet. And it's only, maybe 3 to 4 inches. It's very small. And it's not a hummingbird. It's bigger than a hummingbird, has a bigger body. But I posted a link to a video of a ruby-crowned kinglet on Facebook, so you can go take a look. The video's on YouTube and the link's in Facebook, and you can go take a look at them because they hover like hummingbirds do, but they're actually looking for insects. And they're a little tiny bird. They weigh between 5 and 7 grams. Now, if you take a raisin, sort of an average-sized raisin, it weighs about 1 gram. So imagine you've got 5 to 7 raisins in your hand, and that's how much a little ruby-crowned kinglet weighs. Now they're headed farther south, and they could go as far as Guatemala, um, but they are only here in sort of early spring through about now. And this is when they're moving south. So you might see them. They move around like crazy. They're kind of hyperactive little birds, and hard to get a view of. But take a look at the video, and you'll see what I mean on that. And watch for them when you're out and about. And hi, Marie, Dustin, and Edward. Thanks for joining. And also migration time here. This is the time when you want to keep your eye out for some possible western vagrants. Now, birds in migration, they have kind of a compass in their head, and sometimes that compass seems to get flipped around and they go the wrong direction. So during fall migration, western birds sometimes show up here in the east, usually just a single bird. They can be quite exciting to see because they're unusual. Some of the ones that we see, usually 2 to 3 per season, maybe a few more, are clay-colored sparrows and dickcissels. But you can also get some that are even more unusual, like a western tanager, or most recently, a black-headed grosbeak was photographed at a feeder in Deerfield. There hasn't been one in the state since 2003, so I was very excited to go and see it. But this is a time to watch for some of those western vagrants and have your camera handy. Remember, even a lousy picture can be good for confirming an unusual bird. So if you think you've got one, take a picture of it, send it on into New Hampshire Audubon, and we'll take a look at the photo and see what we can make of it. And hi everybody, thanks for joining, Ellen and Judith. So that's a little migration update here for what's going on now. We'll be looking forward to waterfowl arriving, but it's still a little bit early for them. We've still got our sparrows and the last of the warblers. I also posted a video on Facebook of a chipmunk that I saw, and it's got one cheek full of an acorn and a big acorn in its mouth, but its other cheek is flat. It's a funny looking chipmunk, but it's a reminder that other creatures are getting ready for winter. Our birds are moving and migrating, but the mammals that stay here are preparing. So we've got woodchucks that are eating, building on fat, or putting on fat, so they'll have enough energy to hibernate through the winter. Our little chipmunk isn't a true hibernator. They go into kind of a torpor, and then they'll wake up and eat something and then go back into that torpor. So the chipmunks are busy gathering food and stashing food in their larder so that they'll have food when they wake up. Now, usually we don't see chipmunks during the winter. If it is a particularly mild winter or maybe a little stretch of warm days, then a chipmunk might come out and under your feet are looking for some seed. But most of the time, once they are in their burrows for the winter, they stay there. And of course, squirrels are busy finding their nuts and stashing them for their winter supply, but they're active pretty much all winter long. So take a look, enjoy the video and that fun chipmunk. I've been talking a lot about goldenrod, and we featured that plant in New Hampshire Audubon's E-News. If you're not on our E-News mailing list, you can sign up for it, but you can also see it on our website. And I wanted to report back that I've been keeping track of how many different birds I've seen feeding on goldenrod. Now, goldenrod is kind of a superfood for a lot of different reasons. It provides pollen in late fall for butterflies, but it also provides little insects for birds to feed. So far I have seen, let's see, 13 bird species feeding on goldenrod, and I photographed 11 of them feeding on the goldenrod, and I'm still counting. So goldenrod is a great plant to have in your yard um, for um, for birds and for pollinators and butterflies, and it's a great plant to have if you've got like a little corner where maybe you don't want anything formal. You can let a little weedy plant go, but it's also beautiful yellow in flower, so it can be a nice feature plant as well. So that's our wildlife plant profile for this week. It's a new feature we've started in our e-news, so we'll be talking more about other plants that are good for wildlife too. So again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. If you have a question or an observation, don't hesitate to post a comment, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Hi, Sean. Thanks for watching and for joining me. I forgot to mention another migration story that I wanted to share that I just heard about was a western bird called a bar-tailed Godwit. It set the record for non-stop bird flight. Now the Godwit it's got a really long bill, and it's a chunky shorebird, long legs. Let's see, what size would it be? Maybe a little bigger than a blue jay, bigger bodied than a blue jay, with longer legs, longer neck, and of course a really long bill. And they go from Alaska to New Zealand for the winter, and then they return to Alaska to breed. And this bird flew, it had a satellite transmitter on it, so that's how they knew. It flew nonstop for 11 days, went 7,500 miles from Alaska to New Zealand. It went at speeds up to 55 miles an hour. Wow, that is one amazing flight. And they don't think that the bird sleeps during that flight. It flaps its wings pretty much the entire time. Now, to make that kind of flight, they have to put on a lot of fat because that's their fuel for migration. So they bulk up. They actually can double their weight when they're in Alaska in the fall. They feed on clams and worms on mud flats, open mud flats on the edge of the ocean. And they build up all this extra fat, and they actually can shrink their internal organs so they can put on more fat without adding more weight. So they shrink their internal organs so that they have less weight in their internal organs, more room for fat. And it left Alaska on September 16th this year and got to New Zealand 11 days later. And they think that this is a passage, it's a wind-assisted passage, and it may actually have some benefits because it would be free of predators. They're not going to be dealing with predators when they're flying nonstop over the ocean. And they're not going to have to worry about stopping at other places where there are a lot of birds and they might spread disease. So it could be a good beneficial strategy for this migrant. But it is an absolutely amazing flight, and that's a new record for a nonstop flight. So I thought that would be fun to share. So welcome, and I promised that this week I would do a quick intro to bird feeders. So we want to put our bird feeders up when bears have gone into hibernate. And it is still a little bit early, but it's a good time to plan. Actually, it may be fine in the northern part of the state at this point to put your feeders up. It just kind of depends on what the temperatures do. It's going to be really warm today, so I do not have my feeders up yet. But if you're getting ready and want to start feeding the birds, I want to introduce you to a few basic styles of bird feeders. So the first one, I have some props here. So the first one that I'm going to show you it's a tube style feeder. Here, let me back it up a little bit. This is a really long one. For those of us who need or have a lot of birds coming in and don't want to fill it frequently, this holds a lot of seed. But it has perches on it. The perches aren't in yet because this is a brand new feeder and they're still in the inside the feeder itself and haven't been installed. But you just insert them in, and you have, let's see if I can show you, so perches that would come out this way, and then you have this hole where the bird lands and gets the seed. Now this kind of feeder is best with sunflower seed. And sunflower seed is one of the most popular seeds. It attracts the widest variety of birds. So if you can only put out one feeder and one type of seed, I would recommend a tube style feeder with sunflower. And there are many different sizes of this tube style feeder. There are smaller ones, shorter, and this is just serving as an example of the type that you could have. So then there are also types of feeders, something like this here. You can see, put the seed in, and then instead of holes, there's a trough where the seed comes out. And a wide variety of birds can come and feed at this kind of feeder. And so this can be good for mixed seed. You can have bigger birds like blue jays that can feed from here, where they have a harder time feeding from the tube style feeder. The tube style feeder is best for smaller birds like chickadees, nuthatch, and titmice. This type of feeder can be good for some of the bigger birds like cardinals and blue jays and mourning doves. You can also put just a straight platform feeder out. I didn't have an example of that to show you, but that also is good for things like cardinals and blue jays and mourning doves. Now I mentioned sparrows like to feed on the ground, so do mourning doves and cardinals. So scattering seed on the ground is a perfectly viable option. Now we've been talking about the fact that we've been seeing some birds arriving from farther north that sometimes we see in the winter and other years we don't see. And this year is a big year for red-breasted nuthatches, which we've mentioned. Now the red-breasted will like the sunflower seed at a tube-style feeder. But another one we've mentioned has been pine siskin. And pine siskin, like goldfinches, will really like the very small Niger seed, used to be called thistle seed. They have slightly smaller bills, and so they find the Niger seed is much easier to crack open. So this year, I would actually recommend getting a thistle sock. Here, can you see that? And it opens, and you just put the seed. I don't know if I can open it. I can't open it because it's attached, but you can see it forms as you pops open the seed. Will make it come open, and it'll be a round sock. And the birds just land on the sock, and then they peck at it and get the seed right out of the mesh. So I suggest getting one of these this year because I think we probably will have some pine siskins around for the winter, which would be really great. And then another type of seed, well, not seed, but bird food that people put out is suet. And suet you want to put out in a special cage. Here we go, there, that's better. You can see it. And you can buy a suet block, and some of them are just plain suet, and some of them have seeds embedded in. Or you can get a piece of beef suet and put it in this block, and then the birds land on it and peck on it. And the birds that like suet the most are woodpeckers. Woodpeckers, although they'll come into seed, they far and away prefer the suet, and I very seldom myself have them come into seed. So those are a few basics. When it comes to feeding birds, the wider variety of seed that you put out, the wider variety of birds that you will have. So it's not just the wide variety of seed, it's a wide variety of food that you put out, the wider variety of birds. And so those are some of the basics to start with. Now, sunflower seed, as I mentioned, is one of the most popular. A mixed seed will have cracked corn and millet, and some of the birds like sparrows will eat some of that other seed, as will mourning doves and blue jays. And that's one I like to put on the ground. I find when I put mixed seed into a tube style feeder, the birds land and then they pick out all the mixed seed until they get to a sunflower seed. And then they take the sunflower seed and go. And so much of it lands on the ground. So those are a few basics of feeding. I'll expand in another live Facebook to some of the other types of sort of additional specialty foods that you can put out. But I consider these the basics: the sunflower seed, mixed seed, Niger seed, and suet. If you're looking for a source of feeders, please don't hesitate to call New Hampshire Audubon. Our store does not have public hours at the moment, but you can talk to Craig, and he will talk to you about what we have at the store and see if we've got what you're looking for. So again, you can call Craig at 603-224-9909 at the Nature Store in Concord, New Hampshire Audubon's Nature Store. So again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, and I really appreciate you joining me. If you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to post them. Hi, Sean. Hi, Christian. Thanks for watching and joining me. And I always mention that if you are watching this in recording, you can either send a message to Facebook or you can send an email at birds, etc., BIRDSETC at NH and one of our volunteer naturalists will help you with the questions that you've got. And if you have a bird that you'd like to ID, you can also send a message. And again, if you get a picture of it, please send it along. That's how the report of the Black-headed Grosbeak came in, was a photo trying to confirm an identification, and we're happy to do that. And it's very fun to see what people are finding at their feeders these days. So I also want to show you, I have a bug, and many of you may have this same bug. Can you see it there? This brown bug. This is in my house. I found a few of them. And round about fall is when we seem to see them. And they look kind of like a stink bug, but they're actually not a stink bug. They're called the Western Conifer Seed Bug. And they're actually native to Western North America, west of the Rockies. But recently they've expanded into the Eastern North American area. And we didn't get them in New Hampshire until 1997, where we had the first documented specimen in actually Cheshire and Sullivan counties. And now they've expanded from there. So they are in a family that's named for the sort of leaf-like hind legs. Let me show it to you again. Oh, there you are, right on the edge here. Let's see, can you see? Oops. Okay, so look at its legs. You can see kind of, there we go. You can see kind of leafy-like sort of flat areas on their hind legs. And that gives the family its name. They're leaf-footed bugs, not stink bugs. But they do have a foul-smelling spray that they use as a defense. So it makes it easy to confuse with stink bugs. They don't bite. They feed on the developing seeds and flowers of conifers. That's our pine trees. White spruce and hemlock is another couple types of conifer that they prefer. And come fall, they wander into houses. And I got some of the information from a terrific helpful sheet that UNH Cooperative Extension has on their website called Seasonal Insect Invaders. And the Western Conifer Seed Bug is featured in that information sheet. So if you're looking for more info, go take a look there. Again, that's UNH Cooperative Extension, Seasonal Insect Invaders. And that's our Western Conifer Seed Bug. They also don't, I mean, they don't bite, they're not harmful. They just seem to kind of wander around, at least not harmful to humans. Um, and I just put them outside when I find them. They're pretty slow moving at this time of year. All right. Hi, Kim. Thanks for joining us. So that's our quiz insect. And I have a weekly what you can do tip. I've been trying to keep my eye out for things that are easy for people to do that are helpful for wildlife. And there are lots of different things out there, but there was one I came across recently that is very fun to do. But before I do that, I've just noticed there's a greeting from Panama. How exciting! Christian from Panama. Many of your birds are now visiting us. Yes! So we think of them as our birds, but they're really only here for a brief part of their life, and then they head south for the winter. These are called neotropical migrants. And Panama is one of the places where they may winter or move through even and go farther south. But Christian's got vireos and other migrants. Um, and he says, you take care of them over there so we can enjoy them this time of year here. Yes, we all need to take care of them, from Panama to New Hampshire, to migration stops along the way. That's part of why I talk about Habitat for Birds, so that will help migrants during their migration as well. So the conservation of neotropical migrants is really an international effort, and it becomes quite complex when you look at their entire life cycle. So Stefan's got a comment. Oh, I've got a few comments coming through. I wonder if I didn't get them initially, but yes, let me look at Stefan's comment. Sure was a wren in the Millbrook area near water. So at this time of year, the most likely wrens would be Carolina Wren, unless you're in the White Mountains and farther north. Carolina Wrens are a southern species that expanded into New Hampshire, and they're now quite common in the southern part of the state, but they're quite rare north of the mountains. But the other wrens like house wren and marsh wren, those have primarily left the state by now. We've had house wrens lingering on in the community gardens here in Concord, but I didn't have any this morning. So they've pretty much cleared out. And then there's another wren called the winter wren that it breeds primarily in the northern part of the state and farther north. But it is a bird that sometimes we have individuals that stay throughout the winter, and they do like to be near water. They're a little tiny wren with a little tiny short tail, all evenly brown, pretty much all over. Their song is terrific. It's burbly. It's a great song, but they wouldn't be singing at this time of year. They have a little chick, chick, chick note, that sort of alarm little call that they give, but that can be hard to tell from Carolina wrens too, which have quite an alarm call themselves. The Carolina wren has a white stripe over the eye, very buffy on the breast, very chestnutty on the back. It's bigger than the winter wren and has a longer bill that's a little bit curved down. Now, the winter wren does like to be near water, and in fact, when they're found in the winter, it is usually near open water. So if all the water freezes up, we usually don't have any winter wrens that stay the winter. But in areas where there is some reliable open, oftentimes riverbanks where there's some muddy edges to feed, then sometimes winter wrens will stay throughout the winter. So if I were going to be looking up some wrens in a bird book, I would look at winter wren and I would look at Carolina wren, Stefan, and see what you got. And Blaine, thanks for the feedback on that. Now back to my tip of what we can do. So one of the things that we can do is to help make sure we've got bird food available for birds, natural food. And some of that natural food are moths, and oftentimes it's the caterpillars in the summertime that the parent birds for songbirds will feed youngsters. So whether it's a chickadee, whether it's a vireo, whether it's a warbler, whether it's an oriole, they're gathering caterpillars and feeding them to their young. So sometimes we find that there are lots of moths that come to our lights at night. And there's some thought that this may be harmful to the moth populations because instead of being out there reproducing, they're attracted to the light and they don't go about their normal business. We don't know if this is true. It's a theory at this point. But what you can do if you have a light that you want to come home and have a light on outside, turn it into a motion detector light that comes on only when there's motion. Like when you come into the driveway, the light pops on. Then it's not on all night, attracting moths there. The other thing you can do is change your white light bulb to a yellow light bulb, which doesn't attract as many moths. So that's a quick, simple, what you can do tip that may help birds find food and be able to survive in your neighborhood by providing caterpillar food for them. So, all right, Kathleen and Noreen, thanks for joining. Getting ready to wrap up here. But again, if you have any comment or question, don't hesitate to post it. And you can also send a message on Facebook or email us at birdsetcetera at nhaudubon.org. Let me say that again. I got a little twisted around. Birdsetcetera, BIRDSETC at nhaudubon.org. Great. What else was I going to mention? There was one other thing I just had in my mind and I've lost it. Well, sometime in the next week or two, I will return to some of the other types of specialty food you can put out for birds so that you can expand your offering and help them out through the winter. All right. Reminder that New Hampshire Audubon is a nonprofit. We are independent of National Audubon. We are operating and active in New Hampshire, and we definitely could appreciate any support that you can provide. There's donation opportunity on our website. So hope you will support us. And remember that although our centers are still closed, our sanctuaries, any sanctuaries are open from dawn to dusk. The trails are open. We just ask that you follow the COVID-19 safety protocol and wear masks as needed or stay socially distant. So, all right. Thank you, Noreen, for that comment. Thank you very much for joining me and plan to be back next week. We'll see what's happening then. All right. Take care, everybody.